after our next speaker. And we are bringing on Kari Love. Hey, Kari, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you all?
We're great. It's so nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. I am here in my kitchen, so you can see my art. Look, woo, see some astronauts behind me. Yeah, decided after you put out the call that you were like, well, you should give us a project update if you did the live stream last year. And I was like, oh, perfect. Last year I was doing work in progress, and now I can show people what actually happened. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yay.
So I'm going to share slides. Let's see. My computer. Whoa, no. Let's see. I have not done it in this. Oh, share screen here. We're going to do share screen. Uh, okay. Share this window. Now we're going to, boo-hoo. Here we are. So, yeah, I'm here to talk about open source hardware in Opera, which is like not a place people think about open source hardware happening very much. So, like I said last time, I was working as a Impact Fellow for Vision into Art and as an associate costume designer for an opera called Primero Sueño that was in January at the Met Cloisters in New York City. So it was an opera in the round in like a beautiful setting. Here is what the Met Cloisters looks like. So you can see, and this is a shot of the finished piece. So you can see it's a very amazing place to do opera in the round. Um, and then why would we have open hardware in an opera? Well, this is Inez de la Cruz. She was the subject of the opera. She was a Baroque period nun in what was New Spain at the time. She was a famous poet. She was very well known in kind of the viceroy circles, like not how we think about nuns, but her poetry actually is what she's most known for. And at this time, nuns wore these huge discs on their chests called escudo de monja because they had decided that nuns shouldn't wear gold and silver jewelry anymore. It was too ostentatious. So they got replaced by these like incredibly ornate paintings with beautiful artisan work surrounding them. But they were made out of base materials, so like tortoise shell and copper and turquoise. Um, so for this opera, they decided that these should be the site of technology. Some reasons that were very story driven, like the story is coming from the hearts of the nuns, and the Escudo de Monjas are actually often allegorical about something about the lives of the nuns. So something projects something from the story, but also very practical because if you do an opera in a museum space, there's no already built in lights and sound systems and things like that. So having some opportunities to be creative with where you hold those things, it's great to put them on the body. So the costume designer for this was a wonderful designer called Andrea Lauer. This is her tech inspiration breakdown before we even got into making what they really were. So she was thinking they should have lights, or maybe they'd have sensors and projections and play sound, and could we record and play back. And the many keys to enter heaven is actually a quote uh, from Sorwana. And so the idea was like, okay, the variability of these escudos is like part of the story as well. So as we got further into the exploration, Andrea was like, well, these are the actual tech things we're going to put inside. We're going to have projection, we're going to have a light up image, we're going to have speakers, we're going to have a mirror, we're going to have a drum, and then we'd have some kind of microcontrollers for processing this. Here's now seeing the escudos. This was actually still in process, so you can see they're not fully decorated yet. This is when they're still just working prototypes. This is them singing the opening scene in rehearsal. So about creative research in opera, as I said, I was a fellow. So my three areas of inquiry were eco-friendly prototyping, open source creative technology, and materiality in the narrative. So I spent a lot of time last year talking about eco-friendly prototyping. So like if we update on that, we'll do that last. But I will talk about the other two that I haven't really talked about as much. Um, so the open source creative technology questions were, can we document the whole prototyping process to demystify technology for costume designers and costuming for creative technologists? And can this be open hardware? Part of my research process was that I was like taking quotes from people as we went along the production. So the director had said, knowledge is a call to freedom, which I think is a great like snippet about how I feel about open source. Um, maybe unglamorously, but one of the things I'm really excited to share about my process about doing open source hardware in Opera is about contracts. So if you work in creative fields, a lot of times you get these work for hire contracts, and they actually say like you can't do anything essentially. All work product belongs to the company, and you can't take any photos, you can't take any videos, you can't say anything, you can't share anything, and I waive all my moral rights. Um, and also so especially for this, since the production company Vision into Art wants to be open source, I called them out. I was like, hey, it's one thing to say you want to do open source work, but then you're making me sign this restrictive contract that if I followed it to the letter, I wouldn't be able to do the things you want me to do. So we actually went back and we rewrote the contract with their lawyer. So now it says the contractor should be permitted to make and use independent recordings for the express purpose of furthering research objectives. And also, this is created here, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but created explicitly with the intention of sharing to the open source. And the rights and the nature of the work product belongs to the producer and the contractor in perpetuity for all purposes. And if any case it's not, I have given them the right to use it, and they have given me the right to use it. Though of course we had to protect the without any additional compensation to like clarify the legal boundaries of this agreement. So I hope people are inspired to like look at their contracts if they want to do open source and like start a dialogue about how your contracts can support that. Um, so part of my research in this area is that I will write free tutorials for the wearable projects that we did, and that I'll give talks about them. So like here I am partially fulfilling my fellowship obligations. Um, so here's what the finished escudos looked like. All of them had Edison LED filaments in them. They all had like a gentle glowing kind of ethereal lighting effect. But other than that, they were all different. So going, you know, English language reading style, we had a speaker in this one. This one had a speaker and a mirror so that the performer could show the audience their own faces. Um, this one held the projection surface for the projectors, so it had a long piece of silk that the performer could pull out of their chest. Um, this one was a working drum. One of the performers, while singing, was also the timekeeper for some segments, and so she would actually drum on her own chest on the escudo. Two of them were projectors of two different sizes, and the last one was a surprise stained glass lighting effect that would pulse kind of red and orangish anatomical heart. Um, the first one, and depending on the depth of work that I identified, that I think is the one that should be in the open source, is the wearable projector. If people are familiar with people doing arts and technology, wearing a projector on the body is something that people really want. You'll go and you'll see various productions that have this, but typically the solutions are all tethered. So the kind of the innovation of this set is that they were untethered. And a lot of how that was achieved was a trick that we got from the projection designer, which is that we should be using mirrors. So we're using these special optical mirrors where the mirrored surface is on the face instead of the back, and and that allows us to have the projector lie flat against the body and be able to put the beam out. It was actually wonderful. We had this like little twisty knob on the side, and with the manual manipulation of this, they could project on the floor, the ceiling, or straight ahead off of their body, which was like a great affordance of this design. Um, in the guts of this, we also have this like Kodak Luma projector, which has its own onboard battery, which is nice. So we didn't have to find a battery solution for the projector itself. But the brains of this operation is a Pi Zero combined with a Pi Sugar, so that we were able to hardwire external buttons. So each performer had multiple videos that they could run that they needed in different parts of the performance. And then we had one button that was a blank video, just a black screen video. So that was the off mode, because you couldn't cycle on and off all of the hardware during the performance. And here we have kind of the wearable projector in action. This is again like an in-process shot of the what it's like when someone's wearing this. Um, the way this pivoted, if we go back to this one, this actually just pivoted open enough, this cover, to reveal the amount of space you needed for the beam. So you never saw everything fully open like this. And then one of the things that I found in documenting is I was kind of relying on, there was a lot of official documentation, photographers, videographers, but it hadn't really occurred to me, and I have to rely now on my own photos, that nobody takes a picture of the projection site when there's action happening with the wearable projector. They're all taking a picture of where the action is, which is where the projection is. So this is one of the ways it was used is this projection surface that had been pulled out of the chest of one of the escudos then becomes the surface so we can project onto a performer. Time check. Actually, can I ask you all a question? Do you want to hear about materiality in the narrative, or do you want to spend 5 minutes like chatting back and forth about what I already shared?
I mean, I love materiality in the narrative.
Yeah. I would love to hear about it.
Please.
Okay, great. So the materiality and the narrative questions that we had were, what parts of the materiality of costume can honor the origin of the story? So we're talking about New Spain, you know, the 17th century. We're talking about in a convent. So but we're also kind of in this like futuristic place out of time. We're living in a land of a poem. So again, what parts of the materiality of the costume can honor the origin of the story? What is the possibility of making something between countries to ground the work as a respectful and collaborative sense of place? And then how can the design choices incorporate materials and techniques from the past, the present, and the future? So my quote from one of my colleagues on this is from the mask designer and sculpture designer from the piece, David Miguel Herrera. He says, "My work is a dialogue between the material and the ethereal." So one of the things that was wonderful about this particular production is they took us all to Mexico. We went to Mexico City, and we also went to San Miguel de Allende, and we were able to experience the materials in place. So for example, this top right is a book that actually had belonged to Sor Juana, and it has these like beautiful blue pigments from indigo. We then, like up above, we see contemporary indigo dyeing. We went to see the pyramids in San Miguel. We saw this one with the sequins here is actually like in the churches, the statues have these like elaborate costumes, and then when they're done with them, they cut them up and like sell them for donations to fund their charitable efforts. We have these pom poms. We ended up doing a lot of prop work as well. Me and the costume designer. The costume designer also became the prop designer. Um, this is lambskin in a musical instrument that's a period piece, a period instrument, which they were also using historical instruments in this particular production. So one of the things that actually from the primary research became true in the real escudos was that we used copper edging and rivets. So we used real copper for this rather than something that just was painted or looked like copper. Um, it's actually, and then another thing that was from primary resources was the imagery that the designer used on the faces of the escudos. So, for example, in this particular one, this is the ceiling of the first convent where Sor Juana lived. In that convent, it's funny actually. So this is a time when you like join a convent because you're a woman who doesn't want to live within the bounds of society. So she joined a convent because she wanted to study. She was a scholar. But the first convent she went to was very strict, and so she like feigned an illness to then have an excuse to leave the convent. But you can actually go and see that first convent where she had lived. And this is the ceiling pattern. And so that's what's on the face of one of the escudos. Interestingly enough, the primary materiality and the like whether or not we're going to collaboratively make this with people who live in Mexico now didn't show up quite as much in the escudos themselves. They found themselves into other ways of the production. So David Herrera is a sculptor. He sculpted these like beautiful props that were carried through, kind of puppeteered, and he also made masks for some of the characters and like these kind of semi-masks that covered the eyes when she has a moment where the nuns have a moment of revelation and their eyes get these kind of glasses that enlarge their eyes that are made out of wire sculpture. And then the costumes had these beautiful embroidery pieces made by an embroidery artist who the director and the costume designer met in San Miguel. So we reached out to her and tried to figure out like what is the ways that we can highlight you and use your work respectfully in this piece and have that be an equitable sort of relationship. So yeah, those are the ways that materiality and the narrative ended up in the final execution.
Wow, that is super cool, Kari. I always love to see like the super creative things you're up to and just like the way you're applying technology in all kinds of like creative spaces. Like I've definitely like never I've never seen an opera or a show with like costumes to this degree. So that's super, super cool.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Especially, I do think that like the work that you have done to even change what the contract can look like to be able to have that access for open source is
it's amazing.
So incredible. A lot of people don't even like think about reading the contract properly, let alone figuring out how to change it to actually work with open source in mind. So thank you so much for coming on and giving us another little peek behind the screen and seeing how things came together in this opera. I really wish I could have seen it.
Yeah.
Well, it will be presented more places. We're hoping it will come back to the Met Cloisters again, but it's actually going to be, hilariously, it's going to be performed well, not hilarious that it will be in Puebla, Mexico. It's wonderful that it will be in Puebla, Mexico, but kind of for the context of us talking, it's going to be in Puebla, but they're not going to use any of the technology because... and it makes perfect sense, actually. So what happened was we performed this at night in January in the Cloisters, which is an indoor, dark, and like echoey kind of mysterious space for a small audience. The next production of this opera will be outdoors in the daytime for a very large audience.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can imagine that projectors would not be the order of the day
Not
in
enough
that
lumens.
scenario.
The lumens aren't strong enough.
Exactly. And then also, so they're going the other direction so they're going to have like a local chorus join them and like have like a go in a totally different direction to honor the new context.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Kari. This is so
Thanks.
cool. You do such great things. Folks, keep up with what Kari's up to.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
They're doing amazing.
Thank you for inviting me.
See you
Thanks.
next time, Kari.